Thank you all. Listen, I appreciate very much the American Legion inviting me here today. You know, Congress only has a 10% approval rating, so I'm glad to get invited anywhere. So thank you. I told the Speaker the other day, I said, Mr. Speaker, there are actually 3 things that poll worse than we do. And he said, well, what in the world could that possibly be? I said, Lindsay Lohan, meth labs in North Korea. So thank you for, and I've added another one, the cable company, if you've dealt with them lately. Thank you all very much for the award and the privilege of being here today. It's a tremendous honor to be with you in the nation's largest veteran service organization. I want to begin by recognizing my fellow Tennessee Legionnaires, and particularly my good friend from Mountain City, Tennessee, Bob Hensley. And I know, Bob, you're here somewhere with other Tennesseans. If you could stand or raise your hand, I'd appreciate you doing that. And I want to just give Bob a shout out for a minute. He has a club in Mountain City. There's a prison there. And there are honorably discharged veterans who later in their lives did something wrong. And I've been there several times to that prison and visited those. And they have a service every year during Memorial Day or Veterans Day that's as good as any I go to. And those men who were incarcerated there painted an eagle and a picture for me that I hang proudly in my office. If you come, you can see that those honorably discharged veterans did for me. And Bob, thanks for being here. Today I'd like to look back at the work that we've done since I've served in Congress and touch on the tasks that we have ahead of us. The American Legion has served generations of veterans for nearly 100 years. The advocacy of this incredible organization has remained steadfast throughout multiple administrations, multiple Congresses, and during times of peace and times of war. The men and women in this room carry on the mission of the American Legion with the same dedication Legionnaires have shown for nearly 100 years. In fact, the American Legion received their charter from Congress in 1919. The Legion's commitment to veterans will hit 100 years next year, and I'm proud of the work of Ranking Member Tim Walz and I did to give the way for the commemorative coin for the American Legion to celebrate the centennial anniversary. And I'd like to give a shout out to Sergeant Major Walz for his work that he's done, and the Senate too also. We've done good work together this year. I know it goes without saying, but I want to take this opportunity to thank our Secretary, Dr. Shulkin, who's here and will speak in just a minute. I know there was a lot of drama last week in Washington. Secretary Shulkin has done a phenomenal job, and I want to tell you all that I walk hand in hand, arm in arm with Secretary Shulkin to try to get the work done that we need to. So, Dr. Shulkin, thank you for your work for veterans. I personally have had the opportunity to meet with Commander Rowan, and I can tell you right now that the 2+ million, me being one of the members of this organization, could not have picked a better leader. And they mentioned one post. I'm not really sure how many American Legion posts I actually belong to, but more than one, I can tell you that, in my district. Commander Rowan, thank you for having me today. I look forward to hearing from you at tomorrow's morning's hearing about the American Legion initiatives for the upcoming year. Let's take a look back. And while I took over as chairman of the House Veterans Affairs Committee last January, I've served on the committee since 2009 when I was sworn into Congress. At that time, it wasn't known as a great committee to serve on, but I knew better. And I knew better because we had an opportunity ahead of us to make a difference on behalf of more than 20 million veterans. I knew that I was serving some of the greatest people on this planet. And I can tell you, my scoutmaster was a first sergeant in the 101st Airborne Division, Sergeant Thomas E. Thayer. Sergeant Thayer and my mother taught me to say, yes, sir, no, sir. Yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. My gig line is still straight. My shoes are polished. And I open the door unapologetically for ladies. I can tell you that. The Legion has been an invaluable partner to Congress for nearly 100 years, but I want to share some of what we've worked together to achieve since I've served on the committee, and it is a bipartisan committee. The American Legion helped push the original 9/11 caregiver bill through Congress back in 2009. And now we're working responsibly to expand this program. The Legion has been just as active in this discussion as they were 9 years ago. The Legion has supported every effort in Congress to modernize the claims processing system and force VA to invest in an IT program that will help the department serve veterans efficiently. Additionally, in part because of your advocacy, the VA now is moving to implement a new system to review disability claims as part of the Veterans Appeals Modernization Act, and it was signed into law last August. There are over 400,000 veterans waiting to hear back from VA about their appeal, but this bill will help speed up that process. We now have a duty to make sure that the department implements this important legislation in a way that truly benefits veterans, and I know the Legion will be just as active in our oversight as they were in getting the Appeals Modernization Bill over the finish line. You've all helped get the Vow to Hire Heroes Act through 2011 and through Congress. The VOW Act made the Transition Assistance Program, or TAP, mandatory for all service members and authorized a year of Montgomery GI Bill benefits for training and in-demand jobs for nearly 100,000 unemployed veterans between the ages of 35 and 60 through the Veterans Retraining Assistance Program. Speaking of the GI Bill, last August, President Trump signed the Harry W. Comey Veterans Education Assistance Act of 2017 into law. Now that's a mouthful, so I can understand why folks call it the Forever GI Bill for short, but I also want to know the importance of the full name of this legislation to the Legion. Harry W. Comey was a national commander of the American Legion in 1936. He wrote the original GI Bill back in 1944 on a notepad at the Mayflower Hotel, and I'm told it took him 5 months to handwrite this important piece of legislation. His dedication should be an example to all of us as we continue our fight to ensure the men and women who've served have access to the resources that they've earned, and his legacy is carried on by the men and women in this room who worked with us, even when others said no to make the Forever GI Bill a reality. Harry W. Comey was awarded the Legion's Distinguished Service Medal in 1975 and died 4 years later in 1979. It was a privilege to name the Forever GI Bill in his honor. And I used the GI Bill in 1975 and 1976, and I'm still grateful to this day that my country invested that money in me at that time. And I think I've paid it back. As many of you know, in 2014, disturbing information about the Department of Veterans Affairs was brought to light, Phoenix. I know there are members of the press here today, and I'd like to highlight the role the media played in sharing information with the public. Now, as you are playing a critical role in sharing the stories of the brave men and women who sacrificed so much for us. Their sacrifices should not go unnoticed, and every veteran and every active duty service member who honorably served this country deserves the opportunity to share their story. Last year, we finally got legislation to bring accountability to the department signed into law after a years-long push. I've said it many times before, but most VA employees are good, hard-working men and women who take their mission to serve veterans seriously. Many of these men and women are in my hometown of Johnson City, Tennessee, at Mountain Home, are personal friends of mine. They're great people. With that said, the bad actions of a few tainted the good name and reputation of many for far too long. Our veterans deserve better, and the VA employees who fulfill their duties deserve better. The committee has uncovered a host of cases where employees should have been fired, but VA did not have the authority or willingness to dismiss them in a reasonable time frame due to the outdated civil service rules and lack of general accountability. Now, because of the accountability law, that will change. And we couldn't have gotten legislation to the President's desk without the American Legion. When I say that, I mean that. The American Legion was one of the first VSOs to come out and strongly support this legislation, and I thank you for that. Looking ahead, thanks to the leadership and the bipartisan commitment we share in Congress to get things done on behalf of veterans, we've achieved a lot since I've served as chairman over the last year. Still, there is much work ahead. As I've mentioned, we've got to find a way to responsibly expand the VA caregiver program to conduct oversight to ensure bills that we've posted are carried out properly. and that the upcoming transition to an interoperative electronic health record is done in a way that doesn't waste taxpayer dollars and, most importantly, is not disruptive to veterans' care. Additionally, we're working to streamline the way veterans receive care from VA. Well, that's a lot we've done in the last year. There's a lot of talk about privatization right now. And I want you to know where I stand, and I stand with you in opposing privatizing the department. But I also want to note that I think there's an argument that some want to move away from the VA as a false premise. While some may want to do away with VA, though I personally haven't heard anyone propose that, I can't imagine anybody doing that, I can tell you right now that Congress has used our power of the purse strings to reaffirm our commitment to VA time and time again. And I'll just share with you briefly. When we passed the 2011 Budget Control Act, we essentially spent for 7.5 years, much to the detriment of our military, exactly the same amount of money we were spending in 2008. But we almost doubled the amount of money that we were spending on VA. That doesn't tell you the commitment the American taxpayers have. Since 2006, VA's budget has increased 175%. Anyone who reviews VA's budget over the last decade can see that more and more resources are being provided for in-house services, especially health care and mental health care specifically. Why in the world would we support such a strong investment in VA if our end game was privatizing the system? VA isn't going anywhere, but we do need to take steps to ensure the department is focused on their mission and using resources wisely to serve veterans. That's why I proposed legislation to provide a comprehensive, nonpartisan review of VA's assets, and I'm so grateful to have the support of the American Legion for this important bill. Thank you for that. One way I believe we can give veterans more options for care is to expand their access to quality providers. In 2014, Congress created the Veterans Choice Program to give veterans the option to seek care in the community. But the concept of community care is not new. VA has been partnering with community care providers since the 1940s. It should go, and as a matter of fact, I was one of them. I was a physician in the community that provided care for veterans in my hometown. But by the concept of the community care isn't new, as I've stated. It should go without saying that VA cannot be everywhere and everything to every veteran. And we know we have a lot of veterans that have lived in rural areas. I've gone from Long Island to Los Angeles and everywhere in between during this past year and to Oregon and many rural areas that veterans just don't have access without the choice program. As we continue to explore options for improving VA's community care program, our focus will be to preserve VA's role as the central coordinator of care for enrolled veterans while increasing their options for care and simultaneously investing in a stronger VA. That's also the purpose of my asset and infrastructure review legislation, to provide processes insulated from politics to VA to take a comprehensive look at their assets and to ensure resources are going where they're needed. I realize this is no small task, but it's a task too important to get wrong. Another important issue we'll be working on is VA's transition to an interoperative health record system. And I will say this now. I helped install an electronic health record system in my medical practice some 12 years ago. It was very expensive, and I say this tongue-in-cheek, but it was an electronic health record that made me a congressman. So that's... If any of you out there have ever used one, you'll understand what I'm saying. The very first hearing I held as chairman was an oversight hearing to take a look at VA's IT systems. Many of the issues we see within the department are direct result of an outdated IT system. Whether it's a delay in processing claims, inability of the Department of Defense and VA to share records, or even payment for our community care providers, all of these. I wholeheartedly believe that to ensure our veterans are receiving the best care possible, we must take a look at the VA system VA has in place now, particularly in regards to information technology. From delivering timely care to veterans to ensure that medical records follow the patient to making benefit decisions accurately, modern IT systems are essential. One of the committee's focuses this year will be to provide the support and oversight necessary for VA to successfully carry out its IT projects, and it is incredibly complicated and important, so please be patient with the VA. In conclusion, as chairman, I pledge to you today that I will work as hard as I can to ensure veterans have timely access to quality care. You, the men and women who put on a uniform to serve this country kept the promise you made to our great nation. You deserve for us to keep our promises also. As a Vietnam-era veteran who was told not to wear his uniform upon arriving stateside, I've seen firsthand a nation that did not respect the sacrifice made by soldiers who were asked and told to go to war. Excuse me. I will never allow our heroes to be treated that way ever again. There is much work to do, but I know together we can make a difference. I greatly appreciate the hard work the American Legion has put forward for veterans over the past 99 years. You guys don't look that old, by the way. And I wish this organization the absolute best for the next 99 or 100 years. I want to thank you again for having me, and I want to thank you all for the honor of serving the men and women who truly make America great. Thank you all very, very much.